He went nuts. Let's start with she has a new way. She's talking about Christianity a lot. Let's go through this, and I'll comment as we go through it. I don't want to deny you the show because it's going to be too long. Okay.
We're going to have a fascinating interview. I do want to go into some more detail before we start, though, to show the level of my generosity in giving you this platform on my show, given some of the stuff you've said about me. So, April 2022, when I launched the show with my interview with Trump, it all kicked off, obviously, you said if my team was unethical and dishonest as the snake Piers Morgan, we'd have sensationally edited this clip of Trump to make it look like he threw a tantrum and asked the cameras to be shut off when in reality the interview was over. We simply wanted to chat off camera. I responded, I bow to your superior knowledge of being a snake, Candice. Tune in on Monday and you'll learn something about real interviews. You then said Piers is whatever he has to be on any given day for attention. He's not guided by any set of principles, which is why I say both sides need to stop platforming his sensationalism. In March of that year, I accused you of falling for Putin's propaganda when he invaded Ukraine, and I called Putin the new Hitler. You said you're such a toddler, Piers, that's way too old to be seriously entering in a literally Hitler analysis. Keep yourself contained to mean tweets about Meghan and Harry while the adults discuss foreign affairs, NATO, and Western hegemony. In March the same year, you wrote with a picture of Finding Freedom, the most historical thing Piers Morgan has ever read. In January 2022, you said, I find Piers Morgan to be morally inconsistent, which breeds intellectual dishonesty. I welcome a public discussion with him about systemic racism, a topic with which he's impassioned, although apparently not impassioned enough to speak with me about it. Why do you suppose that is? You added, we're all on the edge of our seat waiting for an answer here, Piers Morgan. Well, okay.
You should do that more often. I like when you read mean tweets about Piers Morgan. That was great. I salute you for that. That was wonderful.
Exactly. And the truth is, I actually do want to give you a platform, and I have no problem with that. I would obviously contest much of your characterization of me in some of those mean tweets, but that's fine. We can move on because there's a much more interesting story, I think, involving you, which has played out in the last few months, which everybody knows about. So let's just talk about that. Why did you leave the Daily Wire?
You can't talk about it.
Unfortunately, I can't talk about the specific reasons that I left the Daily Wire, but
because the free speech, Ben Shapiro, put a gag order on her.
But what I can do is respond to whatever reasons were given to the public. And obviously, no sooner did we agree to leave than Andrew Klavan of the Daily Wire did an entire episode stating that the reasons that I was leaving was because I was anti-Semitic and I was engaging in a type of anti-Semitism that was hard to pin down. And that is why in my first episode of launching my independent podcast, I hit back pretty hard at him because, I think it's pretty despicable, first and foremost, as a colleague who I had a great relationship with, to have engaged in that, knowing that I was not at liberty to say anything. I thought it was a very underhanded, disgusting tactic, and I responded in force.
I want to play you what Ben Shapiro told me when I asked him about this on Uncensored. One of the consequences of this war has been a lot of very high passions on both sides, a lot of angry disagreements. You and your company have been at the centre of a very high-profile one at the moment with Candice Owens, who's now left Daily Wire. Was she fired or did she leave of her own volition?
I'm not going to speak to this topic here.
I'm not going to speak to this guy.
At all. The only thing I will say is what I've said all along with regard to Candice or with regard to any of our other hosts. I am not in hiring and firing position with the Daily Wire. I'm a co-founder of the Daily Wire. I'm a co-owner of the Daily Wire. I'm not actually in management. And as far as the free...
You fired her because she was anti-Israel and because she destroyed your fucking rabbis. Let's be honest, you filthy animal.
Speech situation. What I will say is that no company has the obligation to literally pay anyone. The Daily Wire is a publisher. It is not a platform.
Oh, here we go. What does that mean?
Do you agree with that, Candice?
Agree with which part?
Well, okay, any of it.
Well, I think that it's interesting, and I'd love to sit down with and debate Ben Shapiro on a number of topics, particularly cancel culture, because I know that he's made some comments in the past that he believes that publishers, platforms should allow people to have different ideas. And so those particular comments to me sound in contrast to what he has said in the past, but I can't speak on behalf of him, obviously. I personally believe that media companies are healthier when you allow people to have different opinions and allow people to debate those opinions. Personally, I love to see a debate between two people. And so I can only tell you what my perspective is and can't really speak for him.
I mean, he made the point at the end there that any company, any private company, when it comes to free speech, is not compelled to pay people to work for them. I mean, would you accept that as a principle?
Well, what I would say again is that it just kind of runs into what is wrong. I guess the question you could ask is, what is wrong if CNN fires somebody for having a different opinion? What then is wrong if Fox News fires somebody for having a different opinion? Your answer would have to be that it's not wrong and that companies are at will to curate whatever belief system that they want and to not allow free speech. So, you know.
Out of interest, is it true that you signed an NDA and that's why you can't really talk about this in detail?
She can't say it.
I cannot speak in detail about any of that stuff.
You can't even confirm whether you've had an NDA?
I am not free to speak about any topic pertaining to contracts signed or not signed. And so...
You see, this is where it gets interesting for me, because you referenced Andrew Klavan from the Daily Wire. I want to play a part of what he said, and then I'll come back to you.
Yeah.
The Daily Wire parted ways with Candice Owens, and part of it was things that she was saying that we felt were strongly anti-Semitic. And she was doing it in such a way that it was kind of hard to pin down, so I was trying to show where these things happen.
So I'm bemused because I've been involved in a lot of contracts in my time. I've been an employer, I've been an employee, and so on. I don't understand why somebody from the Daily Wire can be so explicit about the reasons you left, and yet you are not able to be as explicit to defend yourself or to counter what they're saying.
Amen, Piers. Amen. I think that is probably a question that was on a lot of people's minds. And, you know, what can I say other than what was it that Kanye was saying about contracts? And, you know, I think it is, even if you believe that it is valid for that to happen, I think it is immoral to allow someone to attack someone and to not allow them to defend their name. And so for me, Andrew actually rose to the level of defamation when he started claiming that I had actually said things that I had never said. I mean, he flagrantly lies, and I showed that on my platform when he pretended that I did an episode suggesting that Adolf Hitler burning books was a good thing. I wasn't even speaking about Adolf Hitler. It's a nonsense to think that I would do that on my platform. And it's a trick also. It's meant to make people feel emotional and like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that she's supporting Adolf Hitler. And I thought it was nasty business. I thought it was extremely nasty business. And, you know, for me, Piers, it's important for me to state, my name means a lot to me. You know, my grandfather grew up on a sharecropping farm, one of 12 children, you know, in the segregated South, Robert Owens Sr. And for him to have worked the way that he worked and to have instilled the Christian values in me that he instilled in me growing up, the idea that I would allow someone to so flagrantly throw dirt on his name, it was never going to fly.
Did you ever say or do anything which to a Jewish ear could be construed as anti-Semitic?
Well, let's be clear about all of these topics, whether we're talking about racism, sexism, anti-Semitism, everything can be construed to an ear when you're talking about a subjective ear that I believe that this is racist. I mean, I could say, hey, Piers, you even asking me questions. And to me, it feels racist, right? A feeling and a fact are two different things. So what someone construes something is meaningless. Factually speaking, I have never said anything that is anti-Semitic. And had I have said something that was anti-Semitic, Andrew Klavan would have simply showed the clip.
Right, a lot of attention has been focused on you constantly referencing Christ is King.
All right, here we go, guys. Now, I'm not Christian, right? I don't have no issue with a Christian saying that Christ is the king. As a matter of fact, as a Muslim, I say, hold on. I didn't stop the stuff.
In white supremacists and pretty
Hold
brazen
on. Let me stop.
anti-Semites that being
Now I gotta bring this back. Where are we? Okay, the whole idea is that Candice Owens has been writing what's that? Christ is King. It's been on Twitter. So what? If the Christians believe that Christ is King, who am I to dispute that as a non-Christian? Why is it anti-Semitism? That's like me saying if they say that they're Islamophobic, they hate Muslims for saying Christ is King. No, they don't. If you're a Christian and you have the belief that, especially the way Christians believe in Jesus, I do believe in Jesus. For full disclosure, Muslims believe in Jesus, but we say he's a prophet. So just for full disclosure. But if Christians believe that Jesus is God or the Son of God, they should call him King. What's the problem? Why is it anti-Semitism to call Christ King? Why will Jews be afraid of such a statement? Why? Since you claim every day that you are part of the Judeo-Christian value system. So why are you denying the Christian part of it? I mean, she could say Christ is King all day. I say it. You know what? I will not from on put on Twitter Christ is King. I think he's more than a king. Not only is he the king of the king, I think he's better than a king. King makes law. The kings are able to be wrong or able to sin. Jesus in our religion is sinless. So to compare him to the king is, matter of fact, it's to lower him a degree or two, or maybe a lot of degrees. He's better than that. But my issue here she's going to talk. Why is it anti-Semitism? Why are Jews afraid when Christians proclaim their God as king? I mean, this is about 2-3 billion Christians who believe in this faith, and they should be able to claim it all day and night. Let's go through this.
Simply showed the clip.
right.